What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so LeBron James, of course, begins his 23rd record, NBA record, 23rd NBA season, surpassing the record previously held by Vince Carter, right? And he's anticipated to put up numbers that on the surface looks all-star level. All right. Matter of fact, his camp has stated that he's going to minimize wear and tear, that LeBron's going to be on self-preservation mode, and is looking to push up his numbers. They talked about how last year he averaged 24.4 points per game, and that was down from the 25 plus points per game he averaged during the year before. Yeah, so they're more concerned about his numbers rather than winning a championship or contributing to the team. That's what he's on. He's the ultimate super narcissist. But anyway, Nick Wright, who should have no credibility whatsoever anymore since he recently admitted that for all intents and purposes, he's on clutch payroll, came out recently and said that he believes that LeBron James could play until he's 50 years old. Now, we've heard these speculative career longevity numbers before. Some people said he could play until he's 42, 45, 47. Now, he says he could play until he's 50.
I think LeBron could play at an all-star level. Right now, he's at an all-NBA level. I think he could play at an all-star level for close to another, till he's close to 50. I see no reason. Like, when he quits, it's going to be because that either his family wants him to, or it's just there's nothing left to do. But we were expecting the age curve 10 years ago. And instead what we have gotten is a slight 1 or 2% a year deterioration to where he goes into this year, the 7th best player in the sport? Like, the cliff isn't coming barring a catastrophic injury, and so he'll play as long as he wants to, and he'll probably play with folks' feelings
you guys can't let him do this.
An all-star at 50?
You guys can't let him do this.
Deserving all-star at 50 years old? Come on.
Well, hold on.
I'll buy 50.
Come
I'll buy
on.
45. I'll buy 45.
Hold on.
You're
Hold
buying.
on.
All right.
I can buy 45.
Yeah.
50?
Wait a second.
And of course, he's going, oh no, you gotta understand LeBron. Okay, I'm just going to say what other people aren't going to say. Yes, I can't prove this, but my common sense tells me that when you look at all the other athletes in the history of sports, even the other great Methuselahs, George Foreman, Hank Aaron, Bernard Hopkins, Archie Moore, all the other athletes who were greater for a longer period of time and were able to squeeze out every little bit of juice. Tom Brady, and there's some questions with Tom Brady. We all know about that, right? As far as he might have done some things to enhance his career. But with LeBron, it's so overwhelmingly obvious at this point that there should at least be suspicion about him because he's so above the normal gradient and curve. Even the other all-time great Methuselahs in NBA history, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Robert Parrish, Karl Malone, Kevin Willis, Moses Malone, all of them fell off a cliff at some point, whether it was at age 35, 36, 37, 38, they fell off a cliff. Now, you could argue part of it is physicality. A lot of them were big men. That's a very physical position. Ultimately, injury and attrition took their toll, right? LeBron doesn't really have that resistance anymore. Matter of fact, he's the one, for the most part, divvying out pain. He commits offensive fouls all the time and never is called for it. He doesn't have to deal with bruising, 400-pound bench pressing, centers down low. He doesn't have to deal with, shot blockers. He doesn't have to deal with a Shaq down low. He don't have to deal with the Davis boy. He don't have to deal with Jason Williams, not the guard, but the one that off the limo driver. I'm not laughing at that, but he don't have to deal with Barkley. He don't have to deal with Charles Oakley. He don't have to deal with a John Brisker. He don't have to deal with a Maurice Lucas. He don't have to deal with Kermit Washington. He don't have to deal with all these other guys who you better believe if LeBron was playing 20 years ago, he wouldn't be in his 23rd season. He'd probably be in his 6th season broadcasting somewhere because his body would have broke down years ago. But even with that, there's still suspicion because he's so above what should normally have occurred by now. It's not normal for a guy to be 40 years old and have logged the most minutes in NBA history and to move around the way that he moves on the court. It just isn't normal. Also, people can point out, well, he's still putting up numbers. Yeah, but he's basically playing on one side of the court at this point in time. He's basically only playing offense. He's the only all-NBA player, I believe, this past year that had a negative plus-minus. When you look at, for instance, when you go back to the year after Michael Jordan retired from the Bulls the second time, right? When you go back to that 98-99 season, the 50-game season, there was only 14 players in the NBA that year, 14 that averaged 20 points or more. When you go back to LeBron's rookie year, that number increased to 17. When you go back to LeBron's first year in Miami, that number increased to 19 players. When you go back to LeBron's first year with the Lakers, that number exploded to 31. This past season, there were 34 NBA players who scored 20 points or more. I've said this before, Kevin Durant offensive numbers, both points per game and efficiency, skyrocketed after his Achilles rupture compared to when he was in his prime. Okay? Shooting percentages are at an all-time high. So LeBron averaging 24 points a game, it's not what you think it is. It's not as impressive as the media and the pundits make it out to be. Conversely, Michael Jordan averaging 21 points a game with the Wizards is more impressive than you might remember it being. If you recall, his first year with the Wizards, the Wizards went 37-45, and he averaged 22.9 points per game. But something like the last 15 games he played, Jordan only averaged 15 points because of the debilitating knee injury that he began to suffer from, which shut down his season after 60 games. The last 10 games, matter of fact, the first 45 or 44 games of the season, Michael Jordan was averaging over 25 points per game and was a legitimate MVP candidate. Because at one point in time, the Wizards that year had a 26-21 record. As a matter of fact, the last 10 games before his knee really began to bother him, Jordan was averaging 29 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists during that 10-game span before his knee gave out, which means that if he was healthy as a Wizard, he would have carried that team to the playoffs and possibly, considering how weak the Eastern Conference was, possibly could have took them to the NBA Finals. Now, they weren't going to beat the Lakers. But if you think I'm capping with that, remember the East wasn't really that deep then. You had the Sixers with Allen Iverson, and the Nets with Jason Kidd, and that's about it, right? So it's not like it's that impossible to believe. As a matter of fact, this is something I didn't know. That year, when Rip Hamilton and Michael Jordan lined up together for the Wizards, they were 13-0. They were 13-0. Because I think Rip had some injury issues that year, if I'm not mistaken. So this narrative that Michael was a disaster with the Wizards, no, it just wasn't. He was not Michael Jordan of the godlike nature with the Chicago Bulls, but he was an all-star, and he played on both sides of the basketball. So, no, LeBron James is not going to play till he's 50. And if he did, it would be the most selfish act in NBA history because he's already a detriment to the Lakers. He's probably going to be the main reason why they don't even sniff a title. I mean, do we remember the missed shots he had against Denver recently in the playoffs? Do we remember, the choke jobs he's had in the postseason recently? I mean, what are we doing here? But as long as he puts up numbers, he can play until he's 50. Anyway, that's all I got to say about it, man. Tell what you guys think.